That's why people should use Edge.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Okay, let's try that.
Yeah, try sharing your screen.
Yeah.
If you have video and stuff, make sure to click the with audio or not, depending on.
Yeah, do you see my screen?
Yes. All right. So everyone, Angular Renaissance, What and Why by Nicolas Frizzarin. I hope I said that right. Google developer expert in web technologies and Angular NG champion SFEIR.
Yeah.
Sweet. Awesome. Take it away.
So, so sorry for sorry for the late. I really try to make all work, but there is some kind of issue. Yeah. So my topic today is Angular and Angular Renaissance. What and why. So I'm very happy to be with you today. To be honest, and yeah. So Angular, there is a lot of things currently in Angular, a lot of works for improving the developer experience and for improving the frameworks itself. And today we will see all the new features, what are the new features, and also why they are being created. So yeah, first let me introduce myself. You are a beautiful picture because you can see me. Sorry for that again. So yeah, my name is Nicolas Frizzarin. I'm a Google developer expert in web technology, mainly on the UI and UI and data tools and performance streams. And also I'm Google developer expert in Angular. I work as a developer advocate at Svelte Luxembourg and also senior staff engineer at Svelte Luxembourg. And yeah, I'm a lover of web performance, and I'm also a maintainer of the NGZO libraries, which is a UI library that respects the on design, but mainly focused for Angular. So yeah, what's the plan for this talk? We will see what are standalone components, why they have been created, and the impacts they have on the whole ecosystem of Angular. We'll see the composition API because it's very important. Yeah, this API is very important because we already have this API in Vue and React, and now we can have it in Angular. So it's a big step. And it's the best way to create a reusable code too. Yeah, of course, we will see signals, why signals, what are signals, how work signals, and mainly why they have been created. And finally, I will give you some other cool stuff. It's yeah, for me, it's secondary useful features. So we will see that, and this feature can also improve all your code and improve yeah, the performance of your application. So standalone components. So when the RFC has been created, Paweł Kozłowski, which is which is a core team member, says given the central role of ng modules in Angular, it's hard to reason about components, pipe, and directive. And yeah, this is very, very true, to be honest, because if you remember, when you create an application, it was mandatory to have modules. So yeah, it will be very complicated for some people that comes from React world or a Vue world, that we need to create a module to register a component and to display it. So yeah, and for maintainer of libraries like Storybook or something like this, it will be very complicated also to maintain that, because to test just one component, it was mandatory to create also modules. So I think the approach of given the central role of ng modules, it was not the good way, to be honest. And some people say that it was a workaround, you know. So yeah, the standard, what problems of standalone components? First, it will simplify the hello world, okay? Because the hello world was very complicated for new joiners. especially for new joiners that come from Java World or something like this, because the hello world was first, it was you need an index.html file because it's until until the 14 version. Webpack was the builder, was the module builder under the hood in Angular. So we need index.html, we need a main.ts file, we need a component, and we need a module just to display a simple hello world application. So bootstrapping very complicated, to be honest. And what we will see is that reading components is not enough on its own. So because an application is a lot of modules, to be honest. So when you read your components first, maybe your components depends of other modules. So if you want to understand the whole logic of your components, maybe you need to read your components, you need to read another components in other modules, we need to read the providers. So a lot of things to read just to understand the logic of your application. So now, how to write a standalone components? I think standalone components is very easy to write, to be honest, because it's just a new property in the add component annotation. So just to remember, an annotation is just a function in JavaScript, right? So you can write your own annotation if you want, even if annotation is still in stage 3 in the JavaScript ecosystem, right? So how to write standalone components? Very easy. Add the property standalone to true in the components, and that's all. You have created your first standalone components. Okay. By default, standalone is false, but in the future version of Angular, standalone will become true. Okay. Create a standalone, create an application with only standalone components. Will be the default behavior of Angular in the future. So yeah, when you create standalone components, you can have a new property called the imports, and this property take an array as value, and this array can contain modules, mainly modules, and also standalone components, standalone directive, and standalone pipes, because the property standalone is available also in the add directive and add pipes annotation. Okay. So what is important to understand is why we have this property, because to be honest, when you create a standalone components under the hood, you create modules. Okay. But these modules will be created only when the application is built, and that's why we need the property imports, because we want to have the same behavior that we had with modules. Okay. And also, last thing is keep in mind that modules are not deprecated, right? The modules will become optional. That's the most important part of this topic. So your application can have modules and can have standalone components. The cohabitation is totally possible. Okay, just keep in mind that modules is for grouping some functionalities, right, or some components, and standalone components is it's just a component that you can call anywhere in your application. So there are a lot of impacts with standalone components. First impact is on the routing, second impact is on the bootstrapping, and the last impact will be on the injector. So first, question that we can ask about the routing is how to navigate on a standalone components. That's a good question. Second question, as I said, under the hood, a standalone component is just a module. So can we keep the functionalities of lazy loading something? So can we lazy load standalone components? Last thing is can we lazy load a set of standalone components? So maybe you can just give a child root, a child configuration routing, and in this child routing configuration, we navigate on all standalone components. And the question is, can we lazy load these sets of standalone components? And last question is, do we have some regression? So the answer of all these questions is yes and no. So we can navigate on the standalone components, we can lazy load the standalone components, we can also lazy load a set of standalone components, and we don't have some regression. So this is important because now for your future migration Angular application, you can make a cohabitation between modules and standalone components thanks to the routing. On bootstrapping, the question is, can we bootstrap on a standalone components? And the second question is how to register global providers in an app without modules. Because remember, when we have an app modules, we have a properties called providers, and we can register all the providers to make these providers available for the whole application. So if we have no app modules, how to register these providers? Of course, I already know the answers. You will see me. You will send me thanks to the providing route. That's true. But for some application at injectable providing routes, it's not the good solution for other providers. So maybe like HTTP clients. So yeah, how to register these kind of things. And finally, the impact of the injector is which injector will replace the modules injectors, because maybe in your application or in the future in your future application your application will not have modules. So modules injectors have no sense anymore maybe, and that's why we create a new injector called the environment injector. Okay, so let's go to the routing. I think it's the most important. So yeah, routing as new features. So if you want, imagine hello components is just a standalone components. If you want to navigate to a standalone components, it's very easy. It's like previously, so you give the path hello and you give the property components with your standalone components. So at this moment, your hello component is not lazy loaded. And your components will be in your main bundle, right? Now, imagine you want to navigate to hello details components, and hello details components will be a standalone components. If you want to lazy load, it's exactly the same syntax that previously with load children. So you have just a new property called load components. So load components, and yeah, you can just use the same syntax as load children. So here you can have a promise, an observable that return your components, okay, the class of your components. And finally, the last thing is, can we lazy load a set of routes that navigate to standalone components? The solution is the answer is also yes. And what's the syntax? Very easy, same syntax than when we use for lazy load a module. So you will use a load children property with the same syntax. So it's load children property will have to return a promise or observable of your route, your configuration routing. So how to bootstrap your application? It's quite easy, I think. Now that's all in your main.ts. So you can use just the bootstrap application function, and this function take as the first argument is the standalone components to bootstrap on it, and the second argument an object, a configuration object to be more precise. And this configuration objects have a provider's property, and in this provider property you can register your own providers, and you can also register thanks to provider function yeah, to provider function, the existing providers that expose existing Angular module like HTTP client module or routing module. So let's have a focus on it. So if you want to provide your routing now in your application, which bootstrap on the standalone components, you can use the provide router provider function. Okay, and this function take as first argument yes, the routing configuration, and in the second arguments a list split thanks to comma routing feature. So yeah, routing feature. So here I use with component input padding. You can use with has location strategy if you want to change the strategy of your navigation, etc., etc. If you want to provide animation, before we use the browser animation module, it's not needed anymore. You can just have provide animation or provide animation. I think if you want to not if you want to lazy load the animation, because yeah, animation is very heavy in the bundle, so you can use provide animation. I think if you want to register your HTTP client module, it's not needed anymore to use HTTP clients. To use HTTP client module, you can just use the provide HTTP clients, and you can yes, you can use the helper, the feature, the HTTP client feature function, like with interceptor to register your interceptor, or with interceptors from DI if you want to register your interceptors that have registered like before, because now interceptors can become a function, but we will see that in a few slides. And finally, for some libraries that don't migrate on these systems of provider function, we have an helper called import providers from, and this function take some modules that expose some providers. So I give just an example with Angular material. If you want to register the dialog service in the whole application, just use import providers from, and here you just give modules or a list of modules that you want to register the provider in the whole application. So environment injector, new injector when no modules, just how to register that. But it's quite easy. So now in the routing configuration, you have a new property called providers, okay? And in this providers property, this property take as an argument an array of provider. And at this moment, the user service provider will be available for the login components and the details components. And when you leave this routing, so imagine you don't navigate to the login component, or you don't navigate to the details component, so you navigate to another component. At this moment, the user service provider will be destroyed. Okay, so how now works the bubbling injector? Because if you remember first how the DI works, imagine how to solve a token, how Angular solved a token, sorry. First, he looks in the component injector. If he finds the injector, if he finds the token, he stops the resolution and he gives the value of the providers. But if you don't find the component injector, in the component injector, he go to the module injector, okay? Or yeah, he go to the module injector. And if he don't find in the module injector, now he go to the environment injector, because before he go just in the root injector because environment injector doesn't exist. Now he goes to the environment injector. If he don't find the token in the environment injector, he go to the route injector. And if you don't find the token in the route injector, at this moment, Angular raised an error saying that it can't solve your token. Okay, composition API. Yeah, before Angular version 14, the world was very sad, and that's true, because if you remember, since the beginning of Angular, we have an inject function, and this inject function can be used only on the context of injection. So if you want to use inject in your app components like this, you have an error saying it's not possible to inject app service because you are not in an injection context. That was the error said. But now, since the version 14, the word is very better. So now the inject function can work outside an injection context. And this unblocks a lot of things. First things, of course, it unblocks the composition API because now we can create some helper function that injects some providers. That's very awesome because we can create high reusable code. Okay, and then it unblocks guard as a function and interceptor as a function, because before that we create guard and interceptor as a class because sometimes we need to inject some provider, right? And but this does not make sense, to be honest, because yeah, class is just a sugar syntax. Okay, class is just function. So yeah, why we can just create guard and interceptors like a function? Because simply we can inject some providers outside the injection context, but now it's possible. So let's try. This is an helper function. Okay, just keep in mind that, to be honest, when you want to retrieve the parameter of a route, or if you want to retrieve the query parameter of a route, or if you want to retrieve the data of a route, it's always the same code. Okay, right? So first we inject the activated route, and then we use the params map, which return an observable, and yeah, we map on this param. We get the name of the parameter we want to retrieve, and of course we use filter boolean just to not return a null value. Okay, but it's always the same code. So before version 14, we duplicate this code. Okay, now it's not needed anymore. Just create a get param function and use the inject function like this. Okay, so here I inject the activated route, and I do exactly the same logic as before in the component, but I just move it in a get param function. Okay, and if I want to use it, quite easy. At the initialization, because at the initialization we are in an injection context, right? You can use your get param function and retrieve your ID. Okay, that's really important because if you remember at Angular, yeah, version 10 or version maybe 11, version 11, sorry, the configuration of TypeScript was strict. And when the TypeScript configuration is strict, we need to initialize the property. So thanks now to the composition helper, it will be very easy, yeah, to initialize the property without initializing it with empty observable. Okay, second question, is it possible to inject at a runtime? So imagine you have a button, and when you click on a button, we want to inject a specific provider. Yeah, just, is it possible to do that? And yes, the answer is totally yes, very yes. You have just to inject the injector of the components, and at this moment, when you click on the button, I call the say hi function, and in the say hi function, I call the run injection context. So this function lets you to inject a provider at runtimes. So it takes as first argument the component injector. So that's why I inject the injector here. And it takes as a second argument a callback function, but this callback function must be synchronous. Okay, so no async await in this function because it will not work. And yeah, in this function you can inject your services, and yeah, you can do what you want with this provider. So for me, a concrete example, can be, you know, you have a screen with a list of users, and you can add a user on this screen, but maybe maybe the user will never click on this button. So this moment is not needed anymore to inject the service to open the dialog to other people, because maybe the user will never click on this button. That's a concrete use case. Gral as a function. So this is a concrete example. So I create an inject before we write the classes. So here I have a specific pattern. I inject the router, and I use the can activate function, and I return a boolean or a URL tree. So I just get my ID, and I test my ID with the pattern. If the ID respects the pattern, I navigate to the URL. But if it not respects this URL, I create an URL tree and I redirect to home. Okay, so this now can be replaced by this. So yeah, more easy, I think, to be honest. Right. So I just create a function that take exactly the same params, and I just use the inject function to inject my router, and that's all. So yeah, it's very easy to migrate a guard based class on a guard based function. Exactly the same for interceptor. So I create a class that is preceded by the @injectable annotation, and I implement my HTTP interceptor, and I call the intercept function with the request and next arguments, and I clone my requests, and then I send my request to the server. If you want to migrate that, it's very easy. Just create a function that take a request and a next HTTP under function, so it will not be needed anymore to have next.handle, just next with your clone requests, and yeah, you just copy paste the same logic, so quite easy. How to register interceptors now? Quite easy. Just use the provide HTTP client function and use the HTTP feature helper function with interceptor that takes an array of interceptor function. Okay, and if you don't want to migrate your interceptors and keep it like class in modules, you use the provide HTTP clients helper function, and you can use with interceptors from DI, and that's all. So at this moment, thanks to this function, Angular is capable to register your interceptors like before. Other cool stuff. So if you remember, if you want to, if you want to create, if you are a library contributor or a library maintainer of UI, sometimes you want to have a class, and this class need to be inherited some other function or other work. And with this, a way to do that is mixing. But mixing was not a good pattern in Angular because mixing is very complicated to maintain, and when you touch some things, generally a lot of things are impacted. So other things is you can extend a class, that's true, but you can just extend one class. So if you want to extend multiple class, you need to extend a class, and this class extend another class, and yeah, complicated to maintain. So now we have a host directive, and host directive is a way to simply to extend a behavior of another directive. The only things we have to keep in mind is that the hosted directive need to be standalone. Okay, so yeah, just check this example. I create a directive called sphere button struct, and this directive is instantiated on buttons that have the attribute sphere button struct, and this button, this directive extends the directive bus sphere buttons, and here in the inputs and outputs, I exposed what inputs need to be exposed to my to my sphere button struct directive. So here I exposed the color input of the sphere of the bus sphere button, and I rename it to type. Yeah, I know the syntax is a little bit tricky, and we can do exactly the same of outputs. Okay, and when I write it, I can just write button type egal, or maybe, yeah, I make a mistake. So just imagine is here I rename type button. So type egal button, sphere button struct, type button egal primary. And at this moment, when I said that, the if I have an ng change hook in my bus sphere buttons on the color input, because I type button primary, I enter is my ng onChange bus sphere buttons. And of course, you can retrieve the instance of the bus sphere button thanks to the add view child or add view children annotation. Let's go to signals and reactivity. So what we are proud of signals. So signals is a system of pull and push. First, it will be lazy evaluation, and EricJS, and we are proud of EricJS integration and interpolability. So the important message of these talks: EricJS is not deprecated, and signals will not replace EricJS. EricJS is for user flow, okay, like a click on a button or a filter some array, something like this. And signals is the states of your components. It's like use states in React. Okay, so let me explain this schema. To declare signals, it's very easy. Use the signal function. So here initialize the counter of signal function. Then I create isEven function, which is a recalculation of a counter, and this computed function have the goal to just say isEven is true or false. And then we have an effect. An effect function is to dispatch some effects. Yeah, just to dispatch some effect work. So here, when my isEven function will be changed, my effect will be I called the callback of my functions. So now, okay, just imagine I have my counter.set2 first, or 1, okay, and I set my counter set to 2 to set my new value of signals. So what happened? First, the value version of my signal is 1, the value of my signal is 1. Now I set 2. At this moment, the counter produces a new value. So my value version is 2, and my value of my signal is 2. So because my counter changed, and because I have a subscription on this counter, and I have a subscription also on isEven, I produce a dirtiness of the value of isEven, and I produce also a dirtiness of my effects. Okay. Because of that, I pull. So my effects pull the isEven value now. So so now the value is even, right? It's true, right? But isEvens need to pull the value of counter. So isEven pull the value, and so the value version of my isEven now is 2, and the value is 2 because the value of isEven change. The value version of the producer of isEven will be incremented, and then my effect will be notified. What is important in signals is that now if I set counter.set 4, okay, my counter value version will be 3, that's true, but my is_event function, because the computed return also true, the value version doesn't change. And because of that, I don't enter in my effect. Okay, so that's the system of the new reactivity in Angular, and this will avoid the glitch behavior. Okay, so let's see that in a real component. So I create a signals on the ID. I create a to-do, which is a signals of to-do or null, and I initially set my to-do to null, and I create an ID change effect. So when my ID change, I create a new abort controller. I fetch my new to-do, and I set my response vision. I set my to-do. Okay, why I use the onCleanup function? Because imagine the call takes a lot of times. The first call, my ID change one time, and this call take a lot of times. I change my ID a second times. So we enter again in the effect, right? And the goal is to have the new to-do with the correct ID. So we want to cancel the previous call, and that's the goal of the onCleanup function. Other things, because here you have the to-do.set and you set signals in effect. We have to add a new property called allow signal write to true, because by default Angular don't like to write signals in a effect, because it's very dangerous. Okay, imagine you read a signals like an ID. Okay, you read the ID and you set the ID in the effect, so you create an infinite loop. So signal in components. Now the annotation of @input, @output, @viewChild, @viewChildren, @contentChildren will be replaced by a signal function. So if you want to create an input, it will be input. If you want to create an output, it will be just output. If you want to retrieve a viewChild element, quite easy. It's just viewChild. ViewChild function. If you want to update the counter, you can use update or set. Update function take a callback function, and in this callback function, the first argument will be the previous value of the counter. And with set, with the set function, it just to override the value of the signals without taking into consideration the previous value.
Nicolas, you have at most 5 more minutes.
Yeah, it's nice.
All right, cool.
Finished. Yeah. Don't worry. So now inputs are required. Here I give you the previous syntax, but you can use the new syntax with input.required if you use signals. So no more ng if needed, no more life cycles to test if you have the inputs, and no more complicated selector. So just use required to true. Input transformation, less ball plating is here. Because before we create a specific annotation in ng0 library, we created a lot of annotation just to transform some specific value like input. So no more setter, no more getter, no more custom decorator, just the property transform which take as an argument a function. Okay. And of course, Angular gives you some helper function like Boolean attribute to convert a string to Boolean, or to convert a string to Boolean. Okay, finally, goodbye Webpack. We have a new bundler now. You can use the builder is Angular .application, and under the hood it will be use Vite. Because Vite is server ready, Webpack is not server ready. So with Webpack we need to bundle all the whole application, and with Vite you launch the application and the server is ready. So when you enter in your application, it will build just the specific module or build the specific components you need to display. So it's more fast, and it's used also a best module for the build. And for the win, type form, when you create a component with the CLI, we don't have a constructor and engine units again. The cannot guard will be deprecated in favor of can match, because now can match is a hook that is called every time you navigate. And finally, which is important, is for server-side rendering. Before all this stuff, it will be district iteration. Now it's a partial iteration. The future of Angular is here. Built-in control flow, no needed import of ngIf, ngFor, no switch anymore. The control flow is incorporated in the template compiler. So if you want to just use ngIf, you can use @if, @elsif, @else, @switch. For it will be @for user of users. We need to have the track function or just track the property that is unique. And if you have no users, you can use @empty. Okay, very easy. This will improve the learning curve, improve the developer experience. It's very close to JavaScript, and it will optimize also the core web vitals, not mostly the CLS metrics. And the last one is deferrable template. So you can just defer some specific content of your application. So here I defer my components. My components will not be included in the main builder. It will be separately chunk, and this chunk will be downloading when I click on the load button. Okay, this will improve also the user experience, improve the largest contentful panes and the cumulative layout shift, because we can have a lot of little chunk, and it will be also avoid necessary errors with lazy loading of components and use the directive ng component outlets. Thank you. You can follow me on LinkedIn, Nicolas Frizzarin. You can follow me also on Twitter with @Nikos54. You can ask me a lot of things. I will answer you with pleasure. Thanks for listening to me. Sorry for my bad English actions. I know I'm French, but I'm currently working on it. And thank you. So sorry for the camera.
That's all right. Don't worry about it. Hiccups happen all the time to the best of us. Thank you very much for taking part here. I don't think we have time for questions, since there was the delay, and we don't want to take up too much time from the next speaker as well.
Yeah.
But everyone in the chat, if you have any questions, it's on the screen right there. Quickly grab your phone, scan the QR code, and give Nicolas